Welcome to another Chef Knives to Go Quick Look product review. I'm Steve Gamache, and what we have this time is the Konosuke, what they call Keiai series, if we're pronouncing that right, Series 7 Petty 150mm knife. And this series has a core steel of Aogami or blue paper number 2 reactive high carbon steel from Hitachi. And the heat treat's about 62 Rockwell on that core steel. That's what they shoot for. These are hand-hammered knives, so that's their goal. The construction is a soft iron cladding over either side of that Aogami number 2 for a 3-layer sandwich. And the iron cladding does have a protective kudauchi or blacksmith finish on it. Although the entire blade is reactive, and quite frequently the iron cladding can be actually a little more reactive than the Aogami steel at the edge. So this is not a stainless knife. This is not stainless clad, just to make you aware of that. The weight on this blade is very light, and I got a little typo there, but 65 grams or about 2.3 ounces. The edge length is about 143, which is kind of I think they usually measure from the front of the handle to the end, but for where their advertised measurement. But this one's about 143 on the actual edge from tip to chin. Overall length about 11 inches, a little over that. With these handles they're putting on them. And the spine, these are going to vary a little bit from knife to knife, but this particular one, the spine's about 2.8 millimeters coming out of the handle above the chin or the back of the blade. And then the height is about 28.2. So this is a shorter, kind of utility style knife, petty versus a tall, kind of mini gyuto style. So not quite as good for board work. We'll show you that on the cutting board, but again, a little different style. So it just depends what kind of petty you're interested in. The handle they're putting on these could change slightly, but these handles are what they call octagonal key walnut. And the circumference on this is about 65 millimeters. I measured about an inch from the front where a ferrule would normally be, and about 2.56 inches approximately. We'll get a close-up look, but they're octagonal. Let's look at the blade close up. So here is a close-up of it. And you've got some hand-chiseled kanji. You can see the kind of sandblasted type finish they've got on it with the gray, and there's your core steel coming out at the edge. The left side of the blade is plain, but you can see the kudauchi finish. It's fairly smooth. It's got kind of a crinkly look to it, but when you touch it, it's pretty smooth. They've got nice fit and finish on these. They've relieved the spine just a little bit and the choil as well. So it's a little rough, but it's not sharp. So they haven't polished it a lot, but it's very comfortable. Here's your handle. The handles have kind of they're a little bit narrower and a little taller. Mark may be changing that, so don't judge this too much. That could be a little different in future renditions of this handle. But the handles doesn't have really any taper to it. It's got a nice feel to it, the grain, and it's got a warm, obviously, color and feel. But you don't have a lot of clearance here because of the shortness of the blade itself, the height, and the handle style. So this is not going to be something you can do a lot of board work with, but you can if you just be really careful how you're holding it. Here's your taper. It pretty much just has a bit of taper coming out of the handle, holds maybe a couple millimeters until you hit the grind, and it gets real thin. If you look at that, very thin right at that tip. So the tip will go through softer stuff really well. These get pretty thin right at the edge. They're ground thin right where it counts. And you've got kind of a hard edge there where the grind meets the flats of the blade. So let's take a look at it on a cutting board. These are Aogami number 2, so they'll sharpen up really nicely. It's one of the great benefits of the reactive carbon steel, especially some of these real nice classic ones from Hitachi. They sharpen up so nice. And so here's the profile on this one. We actually go into a fair amount of flat spot on it. And let's take a little look this way to give you another idea. But this has a fair amount of flat to it. Every knife can be just a little different, so don't take this as what every single knife is going to be like, but it'll give you a general idea. So this one flows into an actual stop. It actually hits. You don't just kind of continue and glide into the heel. It kind of comes in and stops. So you have a fair amount of flat section if you want to use that. And then you've got a fairly low tip on here. I can get about right in there before I start digging the tip in. So you can rock this, but it's going to be over lower stuff. Again, a different knife could behave slightly differently with how they hammer it and finish off the profile. If you want to work with this on the board, probably the best thing to do would be to go ahead and just work off the edge of the counter, and then you've got plenty of clearance for work. So that's a pretty common solution for knives that aren't tall, that don't have a lot of clearance for your fingers. Just pull the board to the edge of the countertop and work from there. So you've got kind of interesting kind of departure from a lot of Konosuke's offerings. So this is a kind of a hand-hammered blue number 2. So this is the Konosuke Keiai Series 7 Petty 150mm knife.